What's up, gear mortals? Trey, Xavier here. It's Friday morning. I am sipping on my unfortunately cold coffee out of my Sick Gear Gods mug. And I wanted to answer a question that somebody asked on the channel. Taryn wants to know if I have any recommendations for a 6 or 7 string guitar under $400. I wanted to make a whole video about this because I get asked this question all the time. It's basically recommendations for cheap guitars. And the problem with answering a question like this is that usually people are looking for very specific things. A brand, a model, some kind of exact answer that they can just, cool, I'll buy this guitar. And it's actually a lot more complicated than that. It's hard for me to make a specific recommendation about a guitar like that because those kinds of guitars at that price point is for sure going to be an import guitar, probably made in Southeast Asia, where there are only sort of a limited number of factories where they make these guitars. And when a big company wants to make a guitar at that price point, it's pretty unlikely that they own their own factories. It's much, much, much more likely that they're going to contract with one of these factories to build those guitars for them. So what that means is that all of those big brand name companies, and even a lot of the smaller ones, if they're making cheaper import guitars, they're probably all made in those same factories, right alongside each other. So, any given factory is going to be pumping out like LTD guitars, lower end Schecters, cheap Ibanez, Fenders, and just anything you can possibly imagine, Epiphones. They're probably all made in the same place by the same people. So the kind of thing that you're getting with brand names and specific models is certain features that you like, certain design things that you can get out of a certain guitar that you might not get out of other ones. But that's all entirely personal preference. If somebody asks me for a good guitar recommendation and I give them something that has a bunch of features that I like but aren't right for them, it doesn't really matter if it's well made or if the quality is good. For example, I'm personally much more likely to pick a guitar that has really good contours and also has a headstock shape that I really like and 2 humbuckers and that kind of thing. But if you play blues, you probably don't want 2 humbuckers. Maybe you just want some single coils. So if I recommend that to you, that's a bad recommendation on my part. And usually what people are asking is this guitar good? Is it well made? Is it good quality? At that low price point, the differences between brands is going to be sort of larger things, not the specific quality of the guitars. It's going to be more things like customer service, availability in your area, availability of certain models, stuff like that. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about quality, build quality, if the guitar is well made, if it feels good, plays good, sounds good, or if it's going to just fall apart in your hands. So when people ask me for a recommendation for like a $400 guitar, it's really hard for me to point to one specific thing because really at that price point, the quality control is going to be pretty rough. Trying to think about what it takes to make any money off of a between $200 and $400 guitar, how much it costs the company to actually manufacture it, parts, labor, and of course quality control. And then you got to think about how much they have to mark it up in between actually manufacturing the guitar and when it gets into your hands, in between shipping costs, retail markup, just paying people to do their job at each of these points in between. So then you start to think, wow, well, it kind of makes sense that they would have spottier quality control on these kinds of guitars, especially since a sort of beginner guitar player who is the sort of target audience for guitars at this price point, they're probably not going to really be able to tell as much as somebody who's been playing for a long time if a guitar doesn't play that great. So you can see how it would actually make pretty good financial sense for these brands to not worry about if every guitar coming out of these factories is super high quality compared to their more expensive stuff. Obviously, I do not work for any of these companies. I don't do quality control for them. I don't know what it takes to get a guitar to market, but you can really see how the numbers don't really add up if they're going to spend a ton of time and attention on these cheaper guitars. There are a lot of guitar companies that have their guitars manufactured in Southeast Asia and then they're shipped elsewhere to do the quality control, the final checks, and then they'll either reject them or work on them a little bit before they actually get to the final consumer. But you might also notice that that jacks up the price of those guitars quite a bit. So with all that in mind, the question still remains, can you get a great guitar, or any instrument that matter, for this cheap? And I'm here to tell you today that you absolutely can, but there is sort of a specific way that I recommend that you go about it to increase the chances of this happening. So I've got this guitar today, which looks extremely fancy because obviously it's been heavily modified. But this guitar started life as a run-of-the-mill RG5 EX1 from Guitar Center. And as you can see, this one has been autographed by Paul Gilbert for maximum speed. This guitar was made in Indonesia. It was a Guitar Center exclusive, actually. I bought it used on eBay, which I'm going to tell you in a minute is kind of not the way to go. But the thing about this guitar, even though brand spanking new, it was still pretty cheap. I think it went for around $500, is that this guitar, this particular one, not the RG5 EX1 model, but this guitar that I bought rips. There is something about this neck that is amazing. It's like the dude in the factory was like, today I am gonna make the greatest neck. And I don't know, it could just be complete luck, coincidence, happenstance, but the thing is, it's just fucking great. This guitar rules. Right now I have it set up in a really weird tuning, but it's really, really easy to play, and I really love it. So I know for an absolute fact, personal experience, you can get a super great guitar for really, really cheap. But because of this thing that I was talking about with cheaper guitars and spotty quality control, it means that these kinds of guitars can be very hit or miss. So what do you do to ensure that you're gonna get a really good guitar for cheap and not one of the lemons? As someone who's done a ton of guitar reviews, from super cheap guitars to really expensive ones, one thing I've realized when I'm giving my opinion about a guitar, if it's good or not so great, is that I'm really usually only able to review the one guitar. I don't work quality control at a factory, you know? I can't try every guitar that comes off the line. I'm reviewing the guitar in my hands. And actually, this is a kind of thinking that you can apply to make sure that you get a great guitar. When you decide what kind of guitar it is that you want to buy based on something that you've seen someone else playing, something you've seen on the internet, maybe pictures, you decided that you like the design, you like the style of that guitar, you're not actually deciding that you want to buy a guitar, you're just narrowing the field down to a certain model or type. The guitar that you actually want to buy is the one that you're holding in your hands that you're connecting with. So when it comes to very cheap guitars like these, my recommendation is that you don't buy them online. I buy from online musical retailers all the time. I love Sweetwater, I've bought from Musician's Friend, Zounds, so many of them I honestly can't even remember. And there's a ton of value in buying things online, even from like Amazon, stuff like that. You can get great deals, you don't have to leave your couch, it's amazing. But the thing about really cheap guitars, like I said, is that the quality control isn't great. So that makes buying these kinds of guitars online kind of a crapshoot. More expensive guitars will have better quality control, so I feel a lot more confident buying more expensive guitars online. My recommendation to you is to be Trey for a day and kind of think of yourself like a guitar gear reviewer, but in real life. So what you do is you go to your local guitar store, Guitar Center, whatever's closest that has the most guitars that you can try out, and actually sit down and play a ton of these cheap guitars. Don't worry about the style or the brand or anything like that. Just hold the guitar in your hand, plug it in, try it out, piss off the employee at the store as much as you like. I used to work at a music store, and I would get pretty annoyed at people, who were in there cranking it up and playing a lot. But you know what? You're the customer, and if you're going to buy something and make an investment, I think you have the right to really lay into it and try it out for real. You have to go into this with the right mindset, because if you go into it thinking that you're going to get a certain quality from a certain brand, or something you've seen one of your heroes play, or something like that, it's not really the case. But when you're sitting there at the guitar store with guitars in your hands, you are the quality control. You get to decide if the guitar you're holding in your hands is good enough for you. And then you get to actually walk out of the store with that guitar, not one that looks like it, not the same brand and model, but that exact guitar that you connected with, that you played, that felt great, that really resonated with you. You're going to want to make sure to pay for it first. Don't just walk out of the store with it. This guarantees that you're going to be happy with the guitar that you get, because you're going to be invested way more in making sure that you get a great guitar than the person who's working quality control in a factory that's 6,000 miles away and probably is not getting paid what they're worth. That's also not to say that you can't get a great guitar for cheap that you buy online. You for sure can, but somebody else is picking out that specific guitar for you. They're probably just going to grab the next one in the box out of the pile and ship it to you, and then you just get what you get. There are also some online retailers that have an inspection process that they go through for every guitar before they ship it out to you. For example, Sweetwater has a 55-point guitar inspection that they do for every guitar that they ship out, for anything that's over $299. So that's really great, but it doesn't help you at all if you're trying to buy a really cheap guitar. Once again, it's not you holding the guitar in your hands before you buy it, deciding whether or not it's any good. Because ultimately it is most important what you think about the guitar and how it plays. None of the people, from the person who built it at the factory all the way through to when it actually arrives in your hands, none of those people are going to be playing it every single day, or not because they got a lemon. But if you become your own quality control, there's nothing that'll stop you from getting a great guitar that you love. YouTube gear reviewers like myself are very important because we're your first line of defense against you getting a piece of shit. But the fact of the matter is, with millions and millions of pieces of gear being shipped all the time, I can't check everything. I can't go through and try every single piece of gear, even one of them that comes out, much less every single thing that's coming off of the factory line, which is why really good QC is super important for any company. So then the problem with buying a guitar online becomes that you might have to send it back 2 or 3 times before you get one that's really good. Just by going to your local guitar store and playing a bunch of different ones and buying just the best one, you could save yourself a ton of time and money and pain in the ass. Another reason that it's really, really important for a cheap guitar to be really great right out of the box is that you might buy one of these guitars that's not that great thinking, oh, I'll just take it to a tech to get it set up. But that's faulty thinking, because guitars can have problems that a tech cannot fix at all, or that are so expensive to fix that it makes buying the guitar a terrible investment. So getting your hands on a specific instrument, an individual instrument, and trying it out as much as you can before you buy it is definitely always going to be your best bet. With that in mind, I encourage you to be brand agnostic. What that means is that you're not thinking in terms of which brand or model is the best one. You're thinking in terms of which guitar, which individual specific guitar that you can hold in your hands is the best one for you. If you follow this advice, a cheap guitar could be your dream guitar. So happy hunting. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you haven't already, mash that subscribe button, smack the bell to join the notification squad, drop us a like, and more important than anything else, please leave a comment letting me know what you think, specifically if you have ever bought a really cheap guitar and how it went. Did you buy it online? Did you go to a store and buy it? Were you happy with the end result? Did you wind up returning it? Anything like that, I really want to know. And I'll see you real soon.